Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of GwenTalk. We are here today with my co-host, Shinmiri. How are you doing today, Shinmiri?
Hey everybody, I'm doing great. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And we also have our guest today with us, Flake. Welcome, Flake. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hey Flake. Wow, nice Canada flag rep in there. So why don't you introduce yourself for anybody in the chat that doesn't know who you are yet by this point?
Oh, by now in life, it should be the vast minority of people who don't know who I am because I'm so popular. I'm so honest. My name is Flake. I am a streamer of sorts, a card game streamer. I'm also I guess you could say, the host of the Wild Hunt tournament series, and that's essentially the Cole's notes of my illustrious career.
Absolutely. So let's jump straight in because we are so keen to get talking to you about Wild Hunt. Wild Hunt, for those who don't know, is a North American community-based tournament. It has had massive success. Let's begin, Flake, by just talking a little bit about Wild Hunt 1. How did it go, and what did you learn from that, which you brought into Wild Hunt 2?
So Wild Hunt 1, how did it go? I think it was a resounding success, mainly because of the fact that there was no... I mean, this isn't this isn't a criticism, but there was no outside help, essentially. This is something that was completely community-based and driven. And I mean, it was conspired by the brilliant mind that is No Control, and he's the one who launched it. So from those very humble beginnings, we kind of drove it to where it was back in February in Philadelphia in partnership with NSG. And it was a great success. I mean, not just from concurrent viewership from Twitch numbers, but just from the community response to it. So, I mean, what did we learn from it? We learned that there's an immense hunger or thirst for community events, not just on the grand scale, but more specifically located in North America, which still exists according to, most atlases and maps and geographers. So we're not completely forgotten off the map, but we do kind of create our own little existence over there in our own Gwent community, which is really, really great. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, you've seen it in Wild Hunt 2 and Wild Hunt 1. What have we learned? We learned that there's still a very resilient and great community over there.
Yeah, I am so impressed by the turnout of both Wild Hunt 1 and 2, and not just the players, but also the viewers on Twitch. The production value was insanely good. The casting quality and the hosting quality, next level.
I appreciate that.
The biggest difference, obviously, between Wild Hunt 1 and Wild Hunt 2 was the one-day format versus the two-day format. Yeah. Was it night and day for you guys at the event, spreading the whole thing out for over 2 days?
Yeah, that was a big concern for us, purely because not just from the the damage we did to our own bodies, but I'm pretty sure the UN kind of contacted us, and it was a crime against humanity to make people work that long. It was a 14-hour day from all said and done. But again, it was a growing pain that we had to learn, and we did it the hard way, where we were very much not sure what the response would be to the tournament. So we scheduled a one-day tournament thinking that we can get it all hammered out and done, because we didn't want people to commit to, two hotel days, 2 days worth of travel accommodations, food and that kind of stuff, because we didn't know what the response would be. But it was enormous, and people kind of were all on board for it. And it's a big testament to their passion, because they were there a lot of them were there for the entire 14 hours, whether they were knocked out or not. So moving forward, we kind of gauged the response and said that 2 days, not just from a humanitarian perspective, but we made it 2 days purely because there was that much to do, and there was no way that we could handle that back to back.
So tell us about that in that case. When you went to 2 days, how was it? Was it a lot more relaxed? I know you did a lot more social events, for example. How did it work?
Well, it kind of opened up the opportunity to create more social peripheral events to the actual tournament. It grew beyond just becoming an event to crown a champion. It became more of a community celebration, which is kind of what we wanted in the second one. The people that we met from the first event, and moving forward in the planning stages, all they wanted to do was to come out. A lot of them just didn't give half a bleep about winning or not. What they were more concerned about was actually going out there and meeting people and having a good time playing the game. So that's why you have such a very vast and broad set of deck lists and this and that. It's such a different tournament, which is great. That's why Shoop makes it so many times to the main stage, because
I was gonna say, weren't there some people who brought only Shoop decks?
Absolutely, they were called Shoop Angels, and actually, Mark Theus might be the Bosley of that crew, but he was very much proud of his Shoop's Angels, which made a lot of appearances on the main stage. But just from that capacity of having 2 days to do things, we were able to integrate a lot more community events. And was it more relaxed? Not when the actual event was going on. I mean, everybody was kind of running around and making sure that the actual production occurred on a high level. I mean, and you can thank Mark Theus for that as well. I mean, Mark, who produces the show, obviously, and he's produced so many other shows in the past. But Mark, I'm not trying to kiss any ass here, but it's no secret that Mark is probably one of the best in the business that, I mean, a lot of people have been sleeping on for a long time. And I'm glad that I got to exploit him and milk him for as many months as I did before the rest of the world discovered him. But what I'm saying is that what we desperately wanted was to put on a show that was on par with CDPR's tournaments. And that's something that we took pride in. And I myself am someone who, if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to half-ass it. And we all share the same mentality where it doesn't matter who backs us. It doesn't matter how big the prize pool is. It doesn't matter who's in our corner. We're still going to have the same mentality of putting on a badass show, which is what we did.
Yeah, you guys did an amazing job. Huge props.
Okay, don't mind my cam. It's just deciding to stop itself every now and then. So Flake, tell us a little bit. Speaking of professional level quality, tell us a little bit about your hosting. Now, there has been obviously, as someone else who loves hosting this show, for example, I am a big admirer of yours. I think you're wonderful.
Thank you,
and
that wasn't in the show notes, by the way. I didn't write that in there at all.
But tell us a little bit about what it's like as a host. So lots of people don't have the experience of hosting anything at all. What does it look like for you? How does the day look for you?
So basically the day, if you want to go kind of from I mean, we can go from a moment to moment, but that would be a little bit too strenuous on my own, memories. But basically what happens is when I would show up there probably about an hour before live time. We were there the day before, frankly, before everything was going, to make sure that everything was set up and actually do a quick run through. That's where we had our sort of launch party and whatnot, and make sure that all the systems were good. A little cheeky way to sort of test that everything's working is to put on these, live shows and the trivia show and this and that. Anyways, nonetheless, I got there about an hour early, and everyone else is kind of doing their thing. Mark is, I won't even say what Mark was doing. Mark was recovering from some swift celebrations, but on the first day, on the Saturday, he was actually making sure that all the production was top notch, and that was great. No Control was, making sure that everyone's getting the right matchups and the brackets were set. All I have to do legitimately when I start is just to make sure that everyone feels welcome and everyone is having a good time. I shake hands, I kiss babies, and I don't. And it's important not to mix those up, because if you're, shaking babies and
mixing hands,
exactly, then that is a problem. Then the UN gets involved again. But I mean, from a perspective of while the matches are going on, I'm actually sitting there watching them with the crowd and taking notes, because it's important from an interview perspective that you don't go up there and just completely sell out and say, hey, you just won, how do you feel? Because to be honest, that is the biggest sellout cop-out question, because you obviously feel great because you won. And I kind of wanted to make sure that I'm not there asking, the most basic of thin questions. That's essentially it. So I'm literally there watching every match with a pen and paper and jotting down notes of every memorable play, every questionable move, and every emotion that is kind of portrayed by the players, to sort of touch upon them later, because it's relevant to the question, to the interview process. I find that a lot of the times these productions, people skip over the interviews because they're flat out boring. And I want to make sure that I myself am not going to contribute to that trend of boringness. That's kind of how it goes.
I don't think that's a word we would use to describe you, Flake.
Well, I appreciate that. I sincerely appreciate that.
All right. So just that was wonderful. Firstly, thank you so much for that and giving us a bit of a rundown of that.
I'm a very candid person, is what I'm going to say. I sort of cut through all the red tape. I am who I am, and this is how I am.
Well, so. we'll talk a little bit later. We'll see if we can get some war stories from you about the event a little bit later, when we are joined by Kochua, who actually won the event, of course. But for now, let's talk a little bit about the future. Let's look into our crystal ball and say, what does the future hold for Wild Hunt? Take it away.
Could there be a Wild Hunt 3?
Well,
us know.
this,
We're all
No
waiting.
pressure. No pressure.
no pressure. Now I don't hold all the chips in this gambit, but what I will say is that the outcry for Wild Hunt 3 exists. Within hours of Wild Hunt 2 wrapping up, there was a lot of people saying, so where am I booking my, when and where can I anticipate Wild Hunt 3 to be? And we were actually still in full celebration mode afterwards. And I mean, there's a lot of hours, like dozens and dozens of hours a week go into planning this on everyone's part, which is insane because it's kind of like an extra full-time job. And a lot of us on the Mana Burn team have full-time jobs. I mean, I work 45 hours a week at my normal career, and then I have this. So it's kind of, the balance is crazy. So we're kind of took a little step back just to admire what we accomplished and whatnot. And not just us, but the community itself, what they accomplished in driving it and making sure that it's sustainable. Now, Wild Hunt 3. Now, this is a very tricky question, and I promised you that I'd give you a candid response because that's who I am. Wild Hunt 3 is most definitely something that we're looking into. Will it happen? We cannot guarantee it because there's so many variables that are still up in the air, one of which obviously being homecoming. We know it's going to happen, right, and we want to be able to add to it and to enrich Wild Hunt, to enrich Homecoming and Gwent as it is. That's what we've done since the whole Wild Hunt thing became an idea back in the fall of 2017, and its inception in February, again in its sequel, and now moving forward, we do not want to just let this die. And by that, we mean the game. So we want to enrich it. We want to provide content. But I mean, it's true, right? I mean, right now it's in kind of a state where everything's kind of riding on this mysterious homecoming that nobody really knows all that much about. They're kind of leaking information here and there, and it looks promising, and I trust them that they'll actually get something good out that we can respond to. But at the same time, I mean, at the end of the day, we came out of there exhausted, tired, and we're just hoping that at the end of the line, when it does release and we're thinking about actually putting pen to paper on Wild Hunt 3, that we get the support from other entities that we didn't have in the past. That is something that would be like the last the linchpin in this whole thing. So
basically,
so
it depends on Homecoming, but I hope, I think what you're trying to get at is hopefully when Homecoming comes out, there'll be a lot of momentum behind the game and the community. There'll be new players looking to get involved with the community, and hopefully we can ride that momentum with not only just Wild Hunt 3, but a plethora of different community events all over the world and see this game really grow in that fashion.
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the driving force behind this obviously is going to be community, interest in it as well. I mean, if nobody wants it, we're not going to do it. We have other things that Mana Burn is involved in, a whole bunch of other things other than Gwent. That said, if we had the support of other large entities, then it would not even be a question. So we would be all about
it. Hint, nudge, nudge.
I'm not alluding to anything. And all I'm saying is that we've had support from all kinds of great, big, world-class entities in the past. We're just looking for something that's a little bit more stable, so that when Wild Hunt 3 is, comes down to not down to the wire, but when we do get down to business and start planning it, which is going to be bigger and better than Wild Hunt 2, because that's what we do. We'll have the support of the people from whom we need support from.
So speaking of candidness and keeping things kind of the short version of this is basically Wild Hunt 3 will maybe happen, but if it does happen, it's going to happen after Homecoming, if 100%. There's significant momentum, if there's good communities and sponsorship support. That's basically the short version, right?
Yeah. Look at that. Hell yeah. Write that on a pamphlet and send it out.
Just two. That's how I do, Flake. I'm a straight shooter. All right. Well, thank you so much for telling us about that. We are going to keep Flake on the line because we will be coming back to Flake when we go to our group discussion later in the show. For now, we are going to see a green cricket video. We love our green cricket highlight videos, and here is another one. And then after that, we will be talking to Kochua, I haven't worked it out yet, who was the winner of Wild Hunt 2. So let's see that video, and we'll be right back, folks.
Stay tuned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the GwenTalk Card Spotlight, where we look at underrated cards with interesting mechanics that don't see a lot of play. Today we venture into the forests of Brokilon, the home of the Dryads, where in times past we could have met Morenn, the Forest Child. Morenn was the daughter of Ifne, queen of the Dryads, and there was one thing she longed for deeply: to have children. One day, a Dracon forest, broken outside and inside. Rumors among the Dryads had it that he lost his daughter while fighting against a mighty mage with the name of Vilgefortz during the events that unfolded on Thanet. It was him that Morenn approached after his body started to recover in the healing waters, so he could make her wish come true, but witches are sterile, so was unable to oblige. When she's not meddling with witchers, Morenn is one of the defenders of Brokilon Forest, a profession that should cost her life in the end. The defenders of Brokilon are never to attack directly. They always lay in ambush, and when they could see the arrows, then it would already be too late. This is reflected in Gwent as well, where she's one of the few ambush cards in the game. When the enemy plays a bronze or silver spell, she will turn around to deny the ability of the spell played, which is an exciting mechanic, but she's rarely seen in competitive play. The downside of playing Morenn Forestchild is that you will lose quite some tempo, and you can't even make up for it with Isengrim, since he only is able to play a bronze or silver ambush card. Besides, she has the same problem as Iglace does. If the enemy does not play a special card, then she becomes a dead card in your hand. However, point-wise she is not bad. Typical bronze special cards in the current meta are Reconnaissance, Wyvern Scale Shield, Ointment, Markham Ale, all worth around 12 points or more, making her at least an 18-point gold card. If you play her at the right time, so she counters a silver spell, then you could hit Restore, Mandrake, Monster Nest, etc., which really makes Morenn worth a lot. In addition to your enemy losing points, Morenn also disrupts their game plan, which can also be worth a lot in the right situation. I hope I sparked some deck ideas where Morenn could be part of, and if you have suggestions for next week's card, then visit the Team Aretuza Discord and post them in the GwenTalk channel. And now back to Apero and Shinmiri.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here with Kochua. Hello, Kochua. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well, and
Yeah. Can you give us a quick rundown of like who you are? Who are you?
wow, it's like a dating profile. All right, so I'm a 28-year-old male.
Okay. I'm taking notes.
Boy. Yeah. Things that I like.
How are you?
How tall are you?
We need all your stats, Kochua.
All right, so I am 5 feet 16 inches tall, or as they like to say in Europe, 1.94 meters. And let's see, things I like include making grimacing faces at the camera for multiple hours, appearing deep in thought. Things I don't like include Scorch. I consider that my more thing. And I don't know. Other things I like include appearing here with you guys.
Amazing. Well, yes, congratulations. Kochua, of course, the winner of the Wild Hunt 2 tournament. And before we start talking to him, let's have a little look at his win. We have a little clip here, so let's roll that.
Right into the Cyclops. 2 more right there.
And that's
103 to 89 is your final score. Kochua is your Wild Hunt champion, taking down Goreflow 3-1. A fantastic performance from Team Aretuza's North American representative.
Round of applause. Thanks again to our casts, the crew, everyone here at Nerd Street Gamers, the competitors, and you out there in Twitch chat, and all across the world. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will be back in the future for Wild Hunt 3, so stay tuned for that. And from myself, Flake, and the entire Manaburn team and Nerd Street Gamers, thank you very much. Have a great night, and be kind to one another. Take care.
Welcome back. Were you ever able to get that bell time?
So it's I think I heard you say this on your stream at some point, Shin. You were paying close attention, and anyone who was watching saw that I had to hold it up with one hand.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessary. It sort of doesn't fit, but the real reason I had it up with one hand is that I just couldn't make the buckles latch. I just couldn't. And I was under pressure, but I just folded under pressure, and
you did great, my man. Yeah. All right, so
where are you keeping it?
We all want to know.
Where am I keeping it? Well, Flake got to wave his little Canadian flag to start. I get to wave a much bigger flag here to start the show. I'm still trying to find the permanent place for it, but somewhere in the house it'll make a good appearance.
So this was your first live Gwent tournament, and tell us a little bit about the difference between the experience of playing live and playing at home, and just the general experience of the whole tournament.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of something I was with, and a little bit of something that was totally different for me. So I played some other card games before and even participated in LANs, loved the experience, and even participated, although did very poorly, in the first Wild Hunt. So that much was the same. I was looking forward to that, very comfortable. What was totally different, of course, was going up on stream in front of 1,000 people and playing with money and prizes and t-shirts and so that was definitely a different experience. But I liked it a lot. I actually found, for some reason, that I could get in and get focused and locked in on the game. It definitely helped that I'm a terrible roper, just like you, Shinmiri. But it also helped that my opponents, especially Goreflow, took their time too. Yeah. So there was no shortage of time waiting to try to make your plays. So I was just like, all right, take my time, don't feel rushed. Don't do something totally ridiculous on stream, and have a good time with it. And that's
roping works. It's proven.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I mean that sounds like it was really fun. What about the social atmosphere? What did you think? How was it meeting so many people?
It was, so this being the second Wild Hunt that I've had the pleasure of attending and interacting with the rest of the North American community. I mean, the community is so good that it almost makes me want to not try hard, so that I can focus on spending time with everyone else and hanging out. I mean, the people are just absolutely fantastic. And there were so many great repeat faces in the second tournament that you showed up and you already knew somebody. Maybe you'd even, met up with them in a local meetup after Wild Hunt 1 to get better. And just that, and the 3-day format where you got to see people on Friday night and, then see them again on Saturday. And then if you still have the energy left, see them on Sunday and push the after party. Yeah, it was just really an amazing weekend. So the move to the 3-day format or 2.5-day format was just perfect. It was a great experience.
And how did you prepare your deck? So how did you prepare from a gameplay angle?
Yeah, that's a great question. So being fortunate enough to be part of Team Aretuza, the thing I knew I would need to do is rely on people who are much better at the game than me get ready. So I mean, I'm a full-time employee. I have a job out there in the real world, and so I've got a little bit of limitations on my gaming time. And so I just try to look at the tournament that happened the week before, use all the great minds we have on our team, and say, guys, I'm going to this tournament. See if you can help me not totally make a fool of myself up there. And everyone was incredibly supportive. I mean, the shoutouts could go all around, but in particular, Octopus's on the team was great at scrimming with me several evenings and helping me pick decks. And then we brought a lineup that seemed to fare pretty well.
So about lineups, there's one particular decision that I wanted to pick your brain about. Your Death Wish lineup had a Baya in it. I don't know if anybody else brought a Baya, but definitely one of the few, if not only, Death Wish lineups to bring a Baya, and it played a huge role in the finals and the rest of the series as well. What was the thought process behind that? And
so I'm laughing because I got a lot of credit for bringing a Baya. Tournament after the tournament, people came up to me and said, "Wow, what an amazing tech choice! You win the Dagon Mirror," and it's true that card totally won me the title. Even when it didn't show up, it bluffed Goreflow into not playing a second weather early.
Yeah.
The reason I was laughing is because the sad truth of it is I deserve zero credit whatsoever for bringing the card. So I'm not a monsters player. I don't really know how to play monsters. I decided at the very last minute to submit it to a poll of the internal team. Do I bring Consume to this tournament, or do I bring Death Wish? And it was a pretty close vote. Yeah. But Death Wish wins. So it's Thursday night.
I voted for Death Wish, for the record, everybody.
I missed this poll. Where was I?
In fact, when I first contemplated bringing Consume, Shinmiri went on and said, "I think this is a terrible idea. You're going to get countered." So that led me to get the poll. So Shinmiri deserves all the credit, really.
So Shinmiri asking the question that gets credit coming back to him. I see how it is. Suspicious. Okay, well, did anything end up, I mean, aside from the fact that you're playing monsters and doing great with a deck that you didn't really choose, did anything else surprise you at Wild Hunt 2? Or was there, or on the flip side, was there anything you would have done differently if you had known how it would roll?
Even now that I just said this all in retrospect, it would have been pretty good in the tournament. I think Dagon worked. It was great. Abaya was a great tech choice that I can give credit to Adzakov, another teammate, for. But yeah, I mean, Consume okay. It's hard to look back at a line performed really well for me and say I'd like to do differently. So, no complaints here. I'm sort of obliged to bring a Baya now for the rest of time to tour.
It's your hallmark now.
Yeah, it's a good luck.
So tell us a little bit. You mentioned earlier, and of course, we know that you're a member of Team Aretuza, a very highly valued member of Team Aretuza. Can you tell maybe the viewers, they're probably not as familiar with the role you play. Can you tell them a little bit about what your role is?
Yeah, well, first of all, that's very kind. And like almost all members of Team Aretuza, I wear many hats, if you will. One of the original reasons that the management reached out to me and I joined the team was to help with content creation, actually, which maybe we can even plug at the end of this episode. Spoilers, a little bit of content creation.
There is, yes, there is.
But so originally my role was to come in and help with the content creation, particularly in the role of copy editor. I have a philosophy degree way back in the day from school, and so maybe I could come in and help polish up our articles, make them even better than they are. And then there's other things that I've sort of pitched in a little bit on too. Anyone who hangs out the public Team Aretuza Discord knows me as the stats guy, right? Stats with Kochua. And so I brought that internally a little bit. I like to play around with some numbers from the pro ladder and play with percentages a little bit, see if I can help our competitive players get a bit of an edge. And then I guess the third thing I do now is show up at tournaments and show up on talk shows. So
and win tournaments.
You know what? I high rolled all weekend and it worked out really well for me. So really the key with tournaments is to be able to perform well consistently. There were a bunch of players at the second Wild Hunt that made top 8 in both tournaments, and big respect goes out to them. That's a real achievement. So we'll see. I mean, I'll look forward to the definitely confirmed Wild Hunt 3, right? That's
yeah, 100% confirmed. That was 100% confirmed. Yeah, before homecoming as well. Just
so
Flake is gonna murder me now.
Yeah.
Flake's gonna murder me.
Wherever that may be. Hopefully I'll show up and see if we can have a good time again.
Awesome. And so let's talk a little bit about the future. I mean, is it really just holding steady? I mean, okay, on a personal note, we know that there's a very exciting time about to come up for you. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm taking a Gwen break. From now until almost the end of July, I probably won't play a single game. Yes, and the reason for that's a really good one.
It's a good one.
I'm going on a 3-week vacation to Australia and New Zealand at the beginning of July. And that may seem very exorbitant for somebody who's got a job and everything, but there's a reason for it. I got married recently, and we'll be going on my honeymoon.
Congratulations!
Congratulations!
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be nice to kind of take a Gwen break, see what things look like at the end of July. Probably reasonably similar to the way that they look now, but I'll pick it up after that.
Well, we'll be all waiting with bated breath for your triumphant return to Gwent.
Absolutely, and we should have some news by then. I mean, we've just heard, we'll talk a little bit about this when we move into the group discussion just in a second, but we did hear that there will be some news about Homecoming happening in July, so that should, hopefully by the time you come back, we at least have something more to talk about in that respect. Okay, well, let's go to that group discussion. I'm going to plug my camera back in, but let's move to that now. Let's get Flake back in here.
All right. Welcome back, Flake. Hey. All right, we're all here. So one thing that I wanted to start off with was the social aspects of Wild Hunt. We already talked a little bit about meeting other players and hanging out with them. Were there any fanboys or fangirls that that might have given you some sort of a celebrity treatment? How was that?
You asking me?
I'm asking both of you guys.
If I had any type of celebrity sway, I walked in there and people, the first thing I was asked is, "Hey, are you taking out the garbage or what are you doing?" Like I thought I was work there. Like I was like, or well, celebrity or kind of fanboy-esque moments. There were none for me. Let's say. I mean, I don't necessarily sort of swing that broad of a hammer or like that hefty of a hammer where people are like, holy shit, it's Flake. Like that's never really occurred to me. unless I owe them money. But I mean, in general, I mean, more of that was owed towards people like McBee, Swim, etc. Like these are all people that have a much larger audience than I ever will command. So I think a lot of it also was amongst themselves, like, you know, a lot of voices in the chats from various channels sort of recognizing each other and being able to interact face to face rather than just sort of having discussions and you know, having that friendship right in front of your face rather than in a chat room, you know. So that was nice to see, at least from my perspective. But from a celebrity fanboy perspective, no, I don't think of myself in any way, shape, or form as that kind of guy. I mean, I'm as in awe of meeting, you know, like anyone from the chat than I am meeting like with Swim or with someone else. Like to me, it's just as cool to meet people and faces and recognize names as it is to meet a streamer or something.
That's really awesome.
Awesome. Let's talk. Oh, sorry, Kochua, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say on my behalf, you know, this, I think the tournament was, you know, the first time a number of people, especially viewers, were introduced to me. And I was pretty focused while playing, but I did notice while I was playing that one particularly attractive woman seemed to be pretty interested and really following closely.
Oh, I already know where this is going. Oh my god!
And then when I was finally done, it was an exhausting series, but I was intrigued by this, so I went over and you know, asked her, you know, what she thought. And then my wife said to me, "Wait, did you win? You won, right?" And I was like, "Yeah."
You're already married, man. You can lay it off now. You've got her. It's done. She's locked in, dude.
Very nice. Okay, so yeah, I mean, on that topic, I was just going to say, were there any other, like, any moments that were particular highlights for you guys? Obviously, Kochua, the highlight was winning the thing, but from any other moments, perhaps, that stood out to you or might have led to some interesting situations?
I'd like to give you know, I would even say my highlight might not have been winning. I would like to give some big ups to the production crew at Wild Hunt for the second interview I had with Flake, where Flake and I were a bit of a height battle, and I got a little bit of an assist from the production crew just to make sure Flake knew who was boss. So I appreciate that. Shout out to the production crew. You guys did a great job.
See, what you don't know is that was our little cheeky attempt to get some sort of sponsorship from IKEA. Unfortunately, it did not quite pan out, but still.
Next time.
Yeah. There are, trust me, I mean, the thing about it is that like Wild Hunt in itself has sort of gained the reputation of being like the Las Vegas of events, wherein what happens there tends to stay there. There's a lot of stories that but I mean, there's all kinds of debauchery that occurs, and it's all legal for the most part. But I promise you that, I mean, you could sometimes coax some of these stories out of me, but for the most part, I mean, we can always talk about the intimate relationship that Mark Theus had with the couch at Wild Hunt at Nerd Street Gamers on Sunday morning. That in itself was very, very. You know.
For those of you who don't know, Mark Theus is running the show right now behind the production.
You can't say anything. That's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah, if we're not careful, we'll get a technical difficulties screen.
I think the show now.
Mark had a nice little fling with Jin the night before, and then went home and made it up to the couch. So it was all good.
I see. Were any mustaches drawn?
Oh God, no! I would never do that. I would absolutely never do that. Even though within my like immediate vicinity, I have 2 Sharpies, both of which are ready to rock and roll. But no, I would never ever.
Always armed.
I've done that to one person in my entire life, and to epic fashion where there's absolutely no shred of a lie in this. He had to miss work for 2 days because I went so ham on him. But that's a story for another day. That was in my you know, more interesting days of my youth. But
so 2 takeaways from this. 2 takeaways. If you want the really good stories about Wild Hunt, you need to go to the next Wild Hunt.
Yeah.
The second takeaway is Las Vegas for Wild Hunt 3 confirmed.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh dear. All right.
It worked out. Okay, that's actually, you know what? That's a smart way to sell it for real.
Well,
Make your own stories.
We are going to go to some viewer questions. So for those who don't know or who this might be your first episode of GwenTalk, this is only our second episode, so welcome. We take viewer questions actually on the Team Aretuza public Discord, and Kochua mentioned it earlier. There is actually a link underneath us if you want to go click on that button and join the public Discord. There is a channel there called GwenTalk, and that's where you can ask questions in advance for our guests. And today we have 3 questions. So let's pop over to our first question from our viewers. Which unique aspects of Gwent got you hooked on the game in the first place?
By Gavardia, one of our teammates.
Gavardia, yeah.
Yeah, so who wants to go first?
I'm gonna give this one to the champ. You can go first, my man.
All right, I guess I'll start first. So yeah, I am definitely through and through, jokes aside, at heart, and I picked up Gwent. And it was a game about math, which I love, and strategy, which I love. And then, even though I didn't know it at that point, because it was my first experience to the Witcher lore, it was just a really interesting looking lore that I started. And I just dug more and more and more, and books and games and so on. So all of those things really combined to hook me in.
Very nice. Flake?
I mean, the individual that there's like actually a specific individual who got me hooked on it. That would be McBeard. He's well, he was pulling me at it and was poking at me for a while. Him and I used to play a lot of Hearthstone together, and sort of I used to go to his place and we'd sit on the couch while his now wife would look at me funny and ask why I ever came over to visit if all I'm going to do is, hang out with her then fiance. But still, long story short, he got me into the game and we played. In the part or the element of the actual game that got me really hooked on it was the fact that it was it was a different kind of card game wherein you didn't have the kind of health pool or resource pool that most do. It kind of eliminated that out of it, which was a very unique element to it. There's a lot more strategy. The 3-round element to the game was very added an extra layer of strategy, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, for me, like a lot of you guys, a lot of people in the chat probably as well, I came from Hearthstone. Came with the whole life coach bandwagon period about like February or March of last year. And what I immediately noticed from this game was just the very little RNG for a card game. And a lot of times when you finish a game, you can look back on the decisions that you made and pinpoint exactly what it was that caused you to either win or lose the game, and identify something that you could be in either player's control.
Well, that's how it used to be. Like, but I'm gonna be completely like flat out. That's what allured me to the game to the beginning, and it kind of swayed off that path. Let's just be completely honest about it. Like, there's
definitely a little bit
to dance around it. But you're right. You could have gotten to the point where you can sort of look back and says, this is the exact turning point where I lost the game, and it's purely from my fault or my misplay or my misread on a play. Now, where it's going is a different story, but I mean, from point A to point B, we've kind of sort of hit some rocky road, but you're right. Like, that's the part of the game we kind of swerved away from it, and now we're trying to readjust and get back on course towards that. And hopefully Homecoming has a big part in going back towards that sort of gameplay.
I have to be honest. For me, Gwent was my first ever CCG, so I'd never played anything like it, and I actually found it completely by accident. Some of my viewers might know I used to work as a translator, and I was actually translating an article about the top 5 games with good esports futures. And so weirdly enough, and Gwent was listed, and I just thought, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And I started playing it, and much like Kochua, I was kind of like, the competitive spirit kicked in, the logic brain, the mathematical brain kicked in, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. I suck at this. I need to get better for my own sense of pride. And that's kind of what got me hooked as well. All right, let's go to our second question as well. Here we go. What are your expectations for Homecoming? This is asked by Inbo. I think I'm saying it right. Inb0. So Flake, let's open with you. Homecoming.
Well, my expectations for Homecoming will be that Reddit will be on fire and it's going to burn to the ground because nobody's happy about everything and everything sucks. That's essentially the temperature at all times. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I have no clue at all. Hashtag self-promotion and garbage like that. Really, regardless, my expectations for Homecoming are essentially that the game is going to have a lot of elements from the beginning, from closed beta, but it's going to look different. It's going to act different, but the general sort of flavor to the game of point-based, round-based systems is going to be where it's going to end up, and that at its core is what people want. Will it be Gwent? And this is an argument I've had with people, most notably Greyboxer. Him and I have sort of had a brief discussion about this, where he's like, it's no longer Gwent, but it's like, it is by name, but it's not by what it was in The Witcher and where it's sort of evolved to be. So I mean, I don't have leaks. I don't have access to this stuff of information and such. I get what you guys get in the chat or whatever. I don't have the same types of connections. I'm just hoping that they take a look at this game and really admire what it was at the beginning that attracted to people, and then see where they've strayed away from it, correct it, and improve upon it. Because there's only so many band-aids you can put on it before it looks like an abomination. Whereas right now they've sort of stepped back and said, we're going to go back to the drawing board and we're going to get out something that's good. And I don't doubt that they're going to put great effort into putting out a new product that is going to be more so like the rules and the feel of the first Gwent. Will it look different? Absolutely. But I think it's still going to be a great product.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is spot on. I think the other thing is that's the whole reason for doing it as Homecoming, right? Because kind of they were kind of just trying to patch things and rolling along, and that was kind of the plan. And then they kind of said, well, we can't keep doing this. It's not working. Something's gone kind of wrong. We need to just kind of fresh slate, do it all again. Kochua, is that how you feel about it as well?
Yeah, it's interesting to try and guess at what Homecoming is going to be. So the very title, Homecoming, right, suggests that you're going back to something that you used to have, and you can definitely see ways that they'll do that. But there's also been, some of the leaks we've seen are also taking Gwent in a new direction, right? 2-row Gwent, etc. And I don't know, trying to balance those elements and trying to balance it all on the timeline they've given themselves is going to be really tough. I mean, what do I expect? I expect Thronebreaker to totally rock. I have full confidence in CDPR's ability to make really awesome single player content. And, from there, I'm not going to try to prognosticate too much in one way or the other, I think. I'm just going to really hope for a game that, gets back, if anything, to, the skill aspect of it, the strategy aspect of it. And if they have to make some changes to core mechanics to get it there, then so be it. I'm not going to quite be, keep your hands off our Gwent, because there's definitely to improve it at this point.
I'm totally with you on that, Kochua. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said Gwent is really at its core is a game about strategy and skill, more over RNG and luck. And I think the really core basics of Gwent, as long as it's a 3-round system with resource management and being able to not overcommit and stuff like that, that to me is Gwent. Like 2 rows, 2 copies of bronzes, those things, just because you go to 2 rows or 2 copies of bronzes doesn't mean it's not Gwent anymore. I think at its core, it's just a game about strategy. It's a game about skill and how to properly distribute your resources throughout 3 rounds so that you can win 2 of them. And so I have high expectations for Homecoming, but as well at the same time, I'm also a little reserved, just waiting to see how exactly it turns out before I really pass judgment on it.
And I think in the end, most of us are going to end up coming back to that, right? Because we just can't know. Like, we don't want to go all doom and gloom and everything's going to suck. And I mean, what good does it do, firstly? But secondly, we just don't know that it's true. I think the thing is, we can say it won't be the same game. It maybe won't be the same Gwent, but will it still be a good game and a good Gwent? I mean, that's going to be the question, and that's kind of, I guess, my hopes personally. All right, let's move to our third question from chat. Here we go. What do you think should be done when the game is released in terms of CDPR's support for the competitive scene? All right, I'm going to throw straight to you, Flake. No. Also, this was asked by Spider Chicken, so thank you, Spider Chicken,
Yes.
for both your question and your hilarious name.
Holy
Flake.
crap. Spider Chicken. Okay. Well, my man, it's like you've read my diary. That said, if I had sleeves, I'd roll them up right now. Unfortunately, no, they don't exist. What should CDPR do? Again, I'm the question again, what should CDPR do in terms of supporting the competitive scene? Well, I will say this, they do an excellent job in terms of putting on their own tournaments. That said, there are also a lot of other people who put on fantastic tournaments as well. It's something that can only be win-win when you're supporting the community, making other tournaments in areas and regions that you otherwise have no reach in. And by reach, I mean, you do have player base there, you just don't necessarily have any boots on the ground, to use a very overused term, but you don't have anything going on there. It's very grassroots, which is important to a scene of a game that's trying to make headway into a very dominated genre of game. Like, card games is not something that is easily penetrated. I mean, there's obviously Hearthstone that just dominates the field right now, but there are other upstarts that are either on the horizon or also currently exist that are competing for space. So I think that by not necessarily ignoring these other grassroots movements and competitive movements, but just by withholding a lot of support, it kind of it's kind of like doing the ignoring, or it's kind of, you're not helping it in a degree, when in reality it's always going to be win-win. If you're putting on, if people outside are interested enough to sort of devote their time and resources to put on tournaments, you should probably do your best to lift them up rather than sort of just pat them on the back.
So the question was, what do you think should be done when the game is released? So when the game is released, what should CDP, like in practical terms, like, is it just money? Is it loosening up some of the rules? I've looked at the competitive rules for community tournaments, and it can be a little bit restrictive, especially if you're maybe not having any sponsorship to begin with.
Right.
So what can be done? Let's talk practical steps here.
Okay, if you want like actual sort of practical dot points on how to do this, I think the first thing is, I mean, the rules are there for a reason. It's just so that people are not abusing or profiting off of their own product, and that's completely understandable. It's reasonable and it's responsible business, which is fine. When Wild Hunt went and approached them in order to do the tournament, they were very, very willing and cooperative in terms of loosening these rules, and for that we are forever grateful, because we've put on 2 great tournaments because of that mindset. That said, moving forward, financial help is always great, because otherwise we're funding our own tournaments out of our own pocket, which a lot of people don't realize is that venue, prize money, stuff like that. A lot of that comes from our own, like, my pocket, Manaburn's pocket, stuff like that. We paid for that. Now, moving forward, do we get support from sponsorship? Absolutely, but that's necessary in order to get a $1,000 prize pool to a $1,500 to a $2,000. That's how we kind of move onward from that. It's difficult to put on a viable tournament scene when you're sort of you're spending your own money and resources to put it on. Dot points, I mean, financial help is great, but I think advertisement, support, and actual CDPR, you know, tweets and advertisement and articles and promotion, and
maybe even in-game, because in-game has like that news section.
That's true.
Show something there for it too,
absolutely, right? Absolutely. And I know moving forward that CDPR is absolutely was supportive of Wild Hunt 2. They were supportive of Wild Hunt 3. Otherwise, if they weren't, we wouldn't have the tournaments, because we wouldn't be allowed to. So moving forward, I don't doubt that they're going to be a lot more responsive, because they're such great fans of ours and us of them, because we wouldn't be putting on a tournament for a game we hated. We wouldn't be devoting dozens of hours a week of our own personal free time to put on a tournament for a game that we didn't like playing. So the passion is there, and I think that they need to tap into it and promote it and lift it up. And I mean, I can't give you answers as to too many dot points of what to do, because I don't have that power. I don't know.
I think that was great. I think you've said it. I think you've said it pretty well. So
so I'm gonna shut up at this point, and I'll let Kochua.
Kochua, from a non-organizational perspective, I guess, what would you like to see in terms of CDPR support when after Homecoming drops, after the game is released?
Yeah, so from the competitive side, I think there's 2 things that I find very interesting. One is that there's a number of things that Gwent does well already. I mean, there are definitely improvements that could be made on the current qualification process for competitive, as well as the pro ladder. But the fact that there is a pro ladder that makes you be competent at a number of factions, and now there's also a qualifier that expands a little bit to get to open. I think those are all really good steps. Would love to see some more of that, some tweaking, but I think that there's some really solid fundamentals from the competitive scene here. The second point, though, is that there's multiple ways to attack the competitive scene. Or as a player or a lover of Gwent, there's a number of different access points or avenues that I think they could expand on. Right. So if you're somebody who can spend 1,500 games or 2,000 games every 2 months, and you're really good and you work really hard, right? Trying to qualify for Open off the pro ladder, it's an avenue for you, right? You can devote your life to Gwent, try to become the very best, like no one ever was, and hopefully you end up with a championship in Poland and become famous, right? That's an option. For me, that's never really possible. I've got a job. I can play 500-600 games, still big time investment, but a more limited number of games every pro ladder season. And so what would I love to see? I just would love to see more tournaments generally, right? So Flake talked about supporting, big, NA or community lands, which is just a wonderful way to get the community going. But even just sort of more online tournaments, right? Your challenge tournaments. There's a couple of those that have floated around over time on the Gwent. just more ways for people like me who could devote, a couple hours to try and compete, but not necessarily all day, every day, day in and day out. I'd love to see some more CDPR support, more aggressive pushing of trying to build that up.
Would that support perhaps, sorry, Shinmiri, I'll just come to you in a second. Would that support include crown points as an idea?
It's a really great question. Under the current system, I could see it being tricky to hand crown points for a random 64-person tournament that you played on a Thursday night. But I do think we can also look at other games. And I think that to greater or less success, other games have, featured sort of daily tournaments or weekly tournaments in their qualification system. There's do it that just encourages people to literally grind 24/7 those tournaments. But I think that there's a way to do it that, competitive players should be good on the pro ladder, and they should also prove their worth in an honest to goodness tournament setting, because they're different settings. And yes, in the long run, whatever crown points means in the future, I'd like to see some way to broaden the pool of how you can earn them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to do it, actually, is to just have more of these like weekly tournaments. Like you could even incorporate it with like Gwent Arena or Ru Gwent, the Russian Gwent tournaments that they have. You could give crown points to those existing tournaments, help those organizations flourish, encourage people to play in those, and those could be like wildcard spots into the next Gwent Open. Maybe you'd have to expand it to like 16 players instead of 8. But you could do that, or you could give crown points maybe to avoid people farming tournaments. You could you could have a cap on how many crown points you can get from those tournaments. But right now, the whole crown points thing only looks like an issue because there's like 1 or 2 outside tournaments other than the official Gwent Masters series that give crown points. So you have like one person who's able to go to like Czechoslovakia or whatever and participate in an 8 or 16-person tournament to get that extra crown point that pushes you over your competitor on pro ladder. That seems a little unfair, but if there's more of them available to everybody all over the world, then it becomes a lot more even playing field, right?
Well, here's another idea. Perhaps rather than assigning crown points as well, they could, for example, you mentioned, wildcard spots for open, but they could potentially also just give you instant access into, for example, challenger qualifiers. So the new system is going to have the top 50 of pro ladder have a challenger qualifier online. So perhaps you win an online tournament and you get a spot in there. So you don't need to get top 50 on pro ladder, but you win one of these sponsored
that helps
or
too with the
tournaments.
grind issue, right? Because
exactly.
In pro ladder is a lot of time commitment, whereas the tournament one weekend is not too bad.
Yeah,
it really just opens up the field. And think what a great story that would be. It would be like the guy who win a $2 poker tournament, right? An invite to the $100 poker tournament, and then win that one to make it to the World Series of Poker, and then they win the whole thing, right? It's just like a great story. Somebody comes out of nowhere.
It just shows that it encourages the notion that anybody can win the whole thing. Yeah, and it could be you. Like you don't have to be a professional gamer to get there.
It could be me.
And
could be you.
Oh my God! All right. So before we finish up, Kochua, we kind of teased a little bit earlier that there might be something a bit fun released in terms of content today on the Team Aretuza webpage. Do you want to tell us about what that is?
Yeah, indeed. So over the last week or so since Wild Hunt, we've all sort of recovered, slept off the hangovers, and you've seen great tournament recaps from other folks in the tournament up. And I was a little bit late getting to it, but the Kochua tournament recap for Wild Hunt is now, I think, live and available on our website. Join me with the recap. We'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll and you can get a little bit more insight into just how the weekend went.
Wonderful. And yeah, I see that Heno has posted that link in chat. So if you guys are interested in reading Kochua's wrap-up story, a summary of his experience at Wild Hunt, then please do click on that link. Let us know what you think. And so that brings us to the end of the show today. So thank you so much, Kochua. Congratulations again. Thank you, Flake, and congratulations to you too on a successful job done. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, great show. Thank you so much for having us.
It was
a lot of fun.
Pleasure.
And thank you also to Shinmiri, of course, for being my lovely co-host today. Thank you, Shinmiri. Always a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. You too. It's a blast. Do we have any leaks for the next episode of GwenTalk, by the way?
We do. We have at least one hard confirmed guest and one soft confirmed guest. So we're only going to tell you the hard confirmed guest, and that is Freddie Babes. So in 2 weeks' time, we will be back. We'll be talking a bit more about the competitive scene, a bit more about tournaments and how they run, and what can be done. And we will definitely have Freddie Babes on the show in 2 weeks to talk about that, and hopefully a CDPR representative as well. And 2 weeks after that, you guys might have seen, I kind of teased on Reddit. Oh, I didn't tease. I just told you guys that Berger and Amers will be coming to the program after that. So that's on the 23rd of July, and we'll be talking all things homecoming leaks at that point and community management as well. So yes, before we finish up as well, thank you to Green Cricket for his wonderful video. We love and treasure him very much. And Mark Theus, you beautiful, beautiful man. He is the clicking behind this show, but so much more. The design, all the high-level production that you see and love, that is Mark Theus. So thank you so much, Mark Theus, for that. And thank you to you, our lovely viewers. We will see you in 2 weeks for episode 3 of GwenTalk. Have a great night.
Bye.